Okay, welcome everyone. I have a couple of practical issues to highlight. We have no fire drill planned tonight, so if there is a fire alarm, please make your way out of the building in a calm and orderly fashion as guided by staff. People with mobility issues should gather in the foyer on the right-hand side as you leave the Mancroft room near to the balustrade where assistance will be provided. The toilets are at the far end of the corridors, either side of the council chamber, ladies to the right as you leave and gents to the left. This meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. So firstly, apologies, and I've received apologies from Councillor Giles, Packer and Stonnard, and we've got Councillor Calvert today, I see, instead of Councillor Galvin. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Members have been granted dispensations from the monitoring officer to take part in the debate and vote on the budget. Public questions, petitions. There have been no public questions. Questions to cabinet members. There have been no questions received. And minutes. Can we confirm that these are an accurate record of the meeting on 11th of December 2024? Yep. It's carried.
Previously, today is the
11th of December 2024.
Oh, yeah, that's what we are.
Yeah.
Did
I say? Okay. Yeah. So 11th of December 2024. We're all happy with that. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So first substantive item, an update on motion protecting private renters. Could I ask Councillor Jones to provide an update on the motion protecting private renters and to move the report?
Thank you. It's a little while that I've had an opportunity to talk about my favourite topic, which is the private sector housing. So speaking today to give you an update on the motion I brought to council, which was agreed on the 26th of September 2023. This also links to a further motion that was later brought by Councillor Catt on around this area as well. Since the motion was agreed, a significant amount of work has been done to further this important issue, and I thought it was important to formally bring an update. As part of last year's budget setting, we secured funds to procure research into the prevalence of HMOs across the city. I'm pleased to say this work has been undertaken. We've also updated our understanding of the role of purpose-built student accommodation in the housing market. As part of this year's budget, we are seeking the necessary funding to secure a stock condition survey of HMOs and the private rented sector so we can understand the state of the housing residents in the rented sector are living in. These evidence studies are needed to inform our decisions about the regulatory routes we can and may employ to help drive up housing standards. As a reminder why we need to act on my original motion, the power of the private rented sector in Norwich has grown significantly over the last 30 years as home ownership has declined and social housing has reduced. About 25% now of all of Norwich's homes are now privately rented, and that seems to rise year on year. Whilst private renters pay a higher proportion of their income in rent than either mortgage payers or social housing tenants, the conditions they live in are more likely to be unsafe. The English Housing Survey, Private Rented Sector 2020, found that in the private rented sector, the rate of Category 1 hazards is around 13%, and these are really important. This is serious and immediate risk to a person's health and safety, compared to 9% of owner-occupied or 5% in social housing. Private rented are a tenure that's more likely to fail the decent home standard. It's important that in making any decision about regulating the private rented sector, we use the available evidence to inform our action. We have evidence showing the need for HMOs, around HMOs and their geographical spread and how they relate to the wider housing market, and particularly purpose-built student accommodation. However, we also need to understand the condition of the stock, having not done any investigation into this for some time, through a stock condition survey. Once we have all the required evidence, we can then make an informed decision. And it's not just a question of HMOs going forward, but it's about addressing all the private rented stock across the city. But evidence-based incremental steps will ensure that we're doing this effectively. And given that HMOs have such a higher prevalence of hazards, this is a good starting point. As someone who underpins their professional life with evidence-based practice, addressing private rented standards and implementation of steps to drive up standards must follow this principle. We must be evidence-based. To deviate would leave us open to challenge and prevent us taking any and all necessary steps to protect private renters. I remain committed to using all appropriate regulatory powers when the evidence base supports this to drive up standards to ensure more of our city's residents live in safe homes and able to raise concerns without fear of retaliatory actions from certain less scrupulous landlords. Alongside this, I think it's important to note it's crucial we work proactively with those landlords who do undoubtedly take their responsibility seriously. We are working on this, and I really remain committed to this, and it is a priority for the council, and I will bring forward updates as and when we know more and can formulate our ideas to move forward. I assure members we're progressing this. The IT improvements in this area, in this service area, will revolutionise what we can offer and be truly responsive. And commissioning evidence-based reports this will lead to implementing solutions that address the challenges in quality that too much of our private rented stock experiences. This is a process and one that I have a long-standing commitment to. To me, it's important we do it once, but do it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. I presume because that's a verbal update,
We don't need to vote on it.
don't need to vote on it and no questions. So yeah, thank you again for bringing that to us. And moving on to item 7, draft equality, diversity and inclusion EDI action plan 2024 to 27. I will briefly move the report. Adam can't be here, so if I could ask officers to present the report. But the EDI action plan is presented in Appendix 1 of the papers for this item. It was considered by scrutiny at their 12th of December meeting, and scrutiny's recommendations are detailed in Appendix 2 with the proposed responses. And we're asked to adopt and approve the action plan and endorse responses to scrutiny's recommendations as shown in Appendix 2. So if I could hand over to officers, I'm not sure who's...
I'm happy just to say that we weren't going to go through any further detail on the report. It was extensively discussed at scrutiny, both this item and the following item in great detail. I know Councillor Wright was at the meeting and the scrutiny recommendations are included. So we weren't going to add anything further at this point, if that's okay.
Well, I'm happy to endorse what's in the report rather than go in any detail, and to reiterate what we've already heard in terms of there was a significant amount of discussion at scrutiny, and I think the recommendations are in your report. So I thank Cabinet for considering those.
Thank you. And does any other Cabinet member wish to speak? No. I will move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for all your work on the action plan and for the mostly positive responses to the scrutiny recommendations. Regarding the scrutiny recommendation to look into the 4-day working week, which has proven to increase staff satisfaction and productivity, following a question to Cabinet on July 24th, Councillor Kendrick said, "We will consider all options for flexible working, including 4-day working week. Considering the needs of our residents and workforce, we will continue to monitor the government's legislative agenda." The government has dropped the previous Tory government's concerns. Can you reassure us that due consideration is being given to this option?
Thank you for the question. I've got a brief response from Councillor Giles, who obviously isn't here today, which is the response to the scrutiny recommendation made in relation to the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Action Plan, and specifically the 4-day working week, is included in the Cabinet papers on page 77. This is the current position, and I don't have anything further to add on the matter at this point. Cabinet will, of course, be updated on any future developments. Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? Yep, unanimous. Thank you. That resolution has been carried. Moving on to item 8, Norwich City Council Equality Information Report 2025. Again, I will move in Adam's absence. I take it from the comments before the last report, but there's not particularly anything else to add other than what we'll have already read in the report. In which case, could I have a seconder? Councillor Kidman, I'll go for that time. And again, Councillor Wright, do you want to say anything about the scrutiny recommendations? Fine. Does any other Cabinet member wish to speak? Councillor Jones.
I think just to say quite how useful this information is for us in terms of when we really want to be responsive to our city, having this level of understanding is really helpful. I found just the amount I learned year on year when I read through this, how helpful this kind of information is, because actually we're here to help those who most need it in our city. So really understanding the makeup of it really helps. Just a comment, I suppose, more than anything.
Yeah, no, thank you, and completely agreed. I will move to the questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
So 16 to 25% of low-income households, around 15% of children, but just 3% to post-16 students, just 25 in total across the whole city. Who we know are often in need of these services supplied. Can you tell us a bit more about what is being done to make sure this benefit is widened to include?
Thank you for your question. And again, I'll read out the response from Adam in his absence. Officers are working to launch a fully digitised version of the Go for Less card, which will ensure the card is accessible to more people. This will be accompanied by a communications plan, which will identify target users and how best to raise awareness of the card. Many post-16 students are able to access reduced rates and discounted memberships for sport and leisure activities across the city, including at the UEA Sports Park, Riverside Leisure Centre and at local budget gyms. Student discounts also apply to many cultural events and tickets. It is therefore suggested that low uptake amongst this user group may, in part, be because of a plethora of discounted options available to them.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and that resolution is carried. Moving on to item 9, Norwich Inclusive Economy Vision, and could I ask Councillor Kidman to move a report?
Thank you. Norwich is a city steeped in industrial heritage. Once England's second city, Norwich attracted people from across the country to work in its wool and weaving industries. And of course, it's famous for manufacturing Coleman's English mustard. Norwich was one of the first cities to transition to a service-led economy. Our strong reputation in financial and professional services is anchored by household names such as Aviva, formerly Norwich Union, who've called the city home since the 1700s. We're proud to host 2 universities which provide capacity for creativity and innovation. To the west of the city, Norwich Research Park now hosts the largest cluster of food and health-related research in Europe. And our city centre contains cutting-edge new economy sectors such as fintech and digital service. Norwich is the only UK city located within a national park and is renowned for its exceptional quality of life. Norwich was England's first UNESCO City of Literature. And our thriving cultural offer includes galleries, theatres, music venues, 2 cathedrals, a Norman castle with a beautiful museum within, of course, and beautiful parks and open spaces. We now stand on the precipice of Norwich's next economic evolution. Over the next 15 years, decarbonisation and the 4th industrial revolution will fundamentally reshape the city's economy. Economic change will create new industries, but also significant opportunities for the world-leading firms that are already established here. And to guide this change, Norwich needs a bold, inclusive economy vision to attract investment and to help future-proof the local economy by ensuring that it is greener, fairer, and more innovative. The vision presented for approval today represents an important step towards Norwich becoming an economy of purpose. By this, we mean harnessing a dynamic, productive and inclusive economy to more actively address social, economic and environmental inequalities. The inclusive economy vision is underpinned by the latest evidence, which has been supplemented by wide-ranging stakeholder engagement, including around 100 one-to-one interviews with stakeholders, 2 officer workshops, a stakeholder workshop, and 2 all-member briefings. The vision relates to the functional economic area of Norwich and has been established with close collaboration with officers at neighbouring authorities and the County Council. It communicates how the public, private and civil society sectors must work together to achieve shared long-term ambitions for Norwich and provide a framework to track and measure the city's long-term progress. Following adoption of the vision, a 5-year economic strategy will be developed, which is aligned with the vision and sets out clear action plans for our work as a council in collaboration with partners. Strategies and delivery plans will be regularly updated to provide detail on how the key projects delivered by the council and also by its partners are delivering against markers and milestones set out in the inclusive economy vision. The long-term outcomes will enable us to speak with one voice for our city, making clear asks of both government and private sector investors to share our mission for Norwich. The lead officers for the project are in attendance this afternoon, should any members have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Kendrick. And do any other cabinet members wish to speak? No? In which case I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
Thank you very much, Chair. The evidence makes clear that Norwich is already trailing behind many of its statistical comparators, including Cambridge, Ipswich and Peterborough, across a number of key metrics, including employment change, GVA growth, loss of office and industrial floor space. Interventions are urgently needed that prevent Norwich becoming a left-behind city. Many of the challenges facing the city have become ingrained and have not changed over the last decade. Yet during this time, the Cabinet have always assured us that enough is being done to grow the city's economy. How can we be fully assured that this time things will change and that the Council will work proactively and allocate resource to work with partners like the Chamber of Commerce and BID to drive a change and actually deliver the strategy?
Thank you. Councillor Kidman, would you please give your response?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Calvert. I'm sure we can give you that full assurance. As I mentioned in my introduction, I think I'll hand this over to John East, if I may, as lead officer to answer that question for you.
Well, thank you. I think there's several things which I'd probably say, and which I think some of which are obvious, is that one of the challenges which the city have had over recent years is that not all the city is actually within the council's boundaries. So risk of stating, I was going to say the obvious, but it is a key issue. So when you talk about, I mean, some of the reasons for the decline, particularly in the city centre, are due, in fact, quite a lot of them, to factors which are entirely outside the council's control. So, you know, which actually probably is one of the factors which argues for effectively Norwich being within a single, moving forward, a single unitary authority. So, as you can understand, things like the Norwich, the business park probably wouldn't have been something which the council would have indicated in the same way if we had had control of the city as a whole. And as you'll see, the large number of the successful, you know, economic clusters, as I said, are in the periphery of the city, which is not really where you'd want them to be. That combined, of course, with some of the challenges around key organisations moving out of the city, albeit that those such as Aviva have come back into the city in recent years. So I think the key around this is actually around moving forward. I think the evidence base has been extremely useful in us articulating the case. And of course, dare I say it, how could it, under the previous government, probably Norwich might not have been the kind of priority which, you know, we'd have liked it to have been in terms of funding. But moving forward, what we will have is a very clear strategy. We know, you know, we've got, you know, which is very clearly articulated in the strategy, and also, as importantly, is developing the 5-year plan with very clear and tangible targets and outcomes. And of course, what this gives us is a basis to successfully seek external investor and government funding.
Thank you very much, Claire. Anything you want to add to close on that following John's response?
No, thank you, John. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think those are all really valid points that I think should give you assurance. I hope so, Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. Do you mind if I ask a supplementary?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Extremely well set out the number of difficulties we've had in the past with boundaries and governments and all the other manner of things. If those were all barriers in the past, why was it the Cabinet has previously given us assurances over the last decade that they could, in fact, influence the economy of the city and that enough was being done if all those factors existed at the time? Thank you.
I don't think that this economic plan precludes any work, hard and effective work that the council have already done, but this is a reimagining vision for the future, which obviously, you know, we live in interesting times, and we can't stand still. I think this is as we set out, this is creative, greener, fairer, innovative vision for the future. If there's anything that John would like to add on the back of that, I'll hand over to him.
I think, and of course, dare I say it, I wasn't here, but in recent years you might expect, but I think, you know, certainly from what I've seen and my understanding, and I think others may be very happy to add to, actually the City Council over the years has done a lot to sustain the local economy, and particularly the city centre economy, not just including using our own resources, but seeking external funding. The Townsdeal Fund, as example, you know, where we secured over £20 million worth, under the previous government regime, which was one of the largest. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Ellen, was one of the largest successful bids in the country. And actually, interesting enough, we are used as a beacon by central government officials in terms of effectiveness in basically implementation. So I think, how can I put it? I would say any arguments, in fact, the council haven't done sufficiently, I think I'd probably dispute from having seen what we have done over recent years.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll now move to the vote. All those in favour? And that resolution is carried. Moving on to item 10, the Council's provisional 25 to 26 budget and medium-term financial strategy. Can I ask Councillor Kendrick to move the report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. The budget proposals for the financial year 25-26 are the outcome of a challenging but rigorous process, which has been born out of the challenge inherent in local government finances at this current time, but which continue to demonstrate prudent financial management, which provides the foundation for service delivery and capital investment for the future. The national economy continues to be impacted by global as well as national and local circumstances. The government has announced its intention to reform local government finance with effect from the 26-27 financial year, with potential revisions to the approach to council tax, business rates, and the way in which government funding is distributed, and the reintroduction of multi-year financial settlements. Alongside the possibilities of devolution and local government reorganisation, next few years will see major changes in local government and the way it is funded. In the short term of the next financial year, the priorities have to be about ensuring that the council is able to engage with these potential major changes from a position of financial stability. The proposed budget before the Cabinet tonight, which I propose this evening, covers a number of distinct elements, each of which contribute to achieving that stability and ensure that Norwich City Council enters this period of change with a solid foundation. The different elements of the budget are as follows: the general fund, the housing revenue account, the capital programme, treasury management strategy, and the section 151 officers section 25 statement. The approach has been to seek to protect service delivery and deliver statutory duties and responsibilities within the context set out above, while also preparing all the elements to support the development of services and facilities available to Norwich residents. As for the general fund is experiencing the challenges facing all of local government, with inflation proving to be more stubborn than was thought originally as last year, and the requirements of meeting statutory duties and responsibilities continue to be a priority. Approximately £3.2 million of growth, including inflationary pressures of 1.7 million, is reflected within these budgetary proposals. This growth is split between permanent and long-term items. Permanent growth primarily recognises the means to deliver the statutory duties of this council, whilst the short-term growth focuses on establishing the foundation for future service improvements, efficiencies and potential growth for Norwich, while ensuring that budgets are robust and sustainable ahead of the challenges which face it on the horizon. The government looks to the core spending power of local authorities when it makes national decisions about funding and its distribution of grants. Core spending power is defined as a measure of the resources available to local authorities to fund service delivery. It sets out the money that has been made available to local authorities through the local government finance settlement. With this calculation, it's an assumption that each local authority will increase council tax by the maximum amount permitted without holding a referendum. In the case of Norwich City Council, this is 2.99%. Without this increase, the council will be required to identify further savings in order to balance the budget. But it would also bake in a deficit in the funding assumptions that the government has about sources available to the council for future years. Some of the financial problems encountered by other local authorities have been at least partly rooted in this. Norwich City Council has a proud record of good financial management, in which this budget will consolidate, underpinned by strong reserves. The budget for the financial year 25-26 proposals do not include any drawdown from the general fund reserves. Earmarked reserves are being used prudently to support services and delivery opportunities for improvement. It is worth noting in this regard that there continues to be an increasing number of local authorities who are seeking exceptional financial support from the government and are considering the need for a section 114 notice and are asking permission to raise the council tax by larger percentages than would otherwise require a referendum. Norwich City Council, in contrast, is maintaining a balanced budget, strong reserves and investing to improve services and support effective change. Savings and additional income of £3.2 million have been identified to support the funding of budgetary pressures, the majority of which comes from efficiencies that do not impact upon the delivery of service to residents. As for the housing revenue account, the housing revenue account business plan was considered by Cabinet in December of 24. The budget reflects the decision to incorporate that business plan for 25-26. In that regard, it is proposed that social rent levels will be increased by the Consumer Price Index plus 1% for existing tenants in accordance with the government's rent standard. The budget anticipates a surplus of 2.939 million for the financial year 25-26, which will be transferred to reserves to support the provision of new homes in future years. Alongside this, there will be increases in investment in repairs and maintenance, which includes additional funding to prevent damp and mould, surveys and asbestos, and remove asbestos and undertake exterior painting. The capital programme. The capital programme further supports the improvements in services and facilities to the residents of Norwich, whether in relation to the general fund or the HRA. In financial year 25-26, key investments will be undertaken in relation to Slowbutton Park. The Disabled Facilities Grant supporting vulnerable adults to remain living within their own homes, whilst in the housing revenue account there will be further investments in upgrading existing stock, delivering more council houses and improving neighbourhoods. Treasury Management Strategy was considered by the Treasury Management Committee earlier in January. The contribution of the Treasury management function makes to this authority is crucial, as the balance of debt and investment operations ensure liquidity and the ability to meet spending commitments as they fall due, either day-to-day expenditures or longer capital projects. The Treasury management strategy also includes key indicators to support the effective governance of council finances. For example, ensuring that local authorities are borrowing within affordable limits and set aside appropriate amounts to ensure that any borrowing can be repaid. Norwich City Council continues to work well within these indicators, maintaining a position where borrowing is well within the maximum levels deemed appropriate, and with a reviewed minimum revenue provision policy confirming that the appropriate provision for repayment is being made. In relation to the investments being made by the council, the strategy supports the duty of the council to ensure that the financial health of the organisation is maintained. The healthy reserves and cash flows mean that the council is able to benefit from investments and lending to others set within the appropriate and prudent structure which prioritises security first, liquidity second, and then yield. The income derived from these investments and loans is reinvested into the funding of deliverable services. As to the Section 151 officers statement, the 25 statement, this is a statutory required element of setting the budget and provides confirmation of the assurance from the Section 151 officer as to the robustness and risks contained within the budget proposals. This is a key part of supporting members in forming their decision around the proposals contained within the budget, and seeks to guard the decisions that otherwise could put the financial health of the council at risk. The council is required to take this into regard when it sets the budget. On the basis of everything I've set out and contained within the report in front of the Cabinet this evening, it can clearly be seen that there has been a comprehensive consideration of all the elements of the budget and its funding. This budget will remain the strength of Norwich City Council's financial management and consolidate the position to be able to respond positively to the challenges ahead. On that basis, I propose and recommend this budget to this Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Does any other Cabinet member wish to speak on this item? Councillor Jones.
Right, given that HRA makes up a fairly large area, I probably ought to add a few things. I suppose just I think I'd like to draw people's attention to the mention about the impact the 1% rent reduction had on the amount we have to spend. And that's really crucial because we've got to have a balance here. Yes, rents will be going up, but it's been consulted with the tenant improvement panel, but also we've got less money to work with than we would have done because of that rent reduction. That's significant because actually when you have a housing stock, you have to invest in it. And that rent is what goes back into that housing stock. So in terms of what we've got going in, then the impact of that on the quality of people's lives. So it's getting a really careful balance with that, but I think we've got that in the plans we're putting forward. I think it's going to be exciting in terms of the plans we've got in terms of responding to the stock condition survey, but that also brings its own challenges. Also, we've got the challenges of decarbonisation, but we're committed to that. And also the positive impact, not just in terms of that as a principle, but the impact those changes will have on people's day-to-day living in terms of energy bills, and the quality of their life is important. We've got increased regulatory pressures, which yes, we welcome, and those are really, I like a challenge, but those have a cost attached as well. So I think it's important to see the HRA business plan budget in that context, that yes, rents are going up, but they are still significantly, the social rents are significantly below the local housing allowance, and it is to meet that need, and that money gets reinvested. So we've got competing priorities in terms of investing in our stock, about building new homes, and it's getting that balance because our current tenants need to be our priority, and the quality of their homes needs to be what we're really investing in. But I think it's, we've got a plan going forward, and that at the moment that's sustainable. And I think that's something we can be really proud of given the scale and age of our housing stock. But it's something we have to be innovative about going forward to make that work. And also, I think in the report, it's interesting to show the decrease in terms of number of properties and the impact that has. Hopefully now with the changes around right to buy, that will help as things level off. But that is a really significant impact for the city over recent years. Moving away from the HRA, just want to go back to, as I'd mentioned earlier, in terms of private sector housing, just to highlight the fact that the money for the stock condition survey for private rented sector is also in that. So we've done one in terms of social housing, but to have that, because you can't be responsive, you can't be evidence-based till you've got that information. So I think that's a really positive step, and I think it shows the level of priority, the amount of money we're prepared to invest in that's in the budget for this year. So really welcoming that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Unless any other Cabinet members wish to speak, I will move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
Thank you, Chair. Transfer of the Citizen magazine to online only looks to save about £20,000 a year. Could you explain and share the background here? What work has been done to justify this cut? Have we explored, for example, whether advertising revenue could have kept a guaranteed paper copy arriving through every door? Most of all, have we checked the equalities impact? How will we ensure meeting our communication objectives when we know that those without digital access are most likely to be people over 65 or households with low income or financial vulnerabilities?
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick, would you like to respond?
Thank you for your question. The answer is the budget for the communication team, as with different budgets throughout the council, has come under increasing pressures in recent years because of the need to identify year-on-year savings to ensure that the council continue to set a balanced budget. The money set aside for producing the Citizen magazine was significantly impacted by the COVID pandemic and other global factors, which has resulted in steep rises in paper costs and distribution fees. These costs have remained at the same elevated level compared to pre-pandemic costs. Consequently, after 2021, it has not been possible to reduce the same number of issues of the magazine, which were four per year, without increasing the spending. To keep within the budget, the number of issues reduced from 4 to 3 in 22-23. Due to ongoing budget savings in 23-24, the number of issues had to be reduced further from 3 to 2 in both that financial year and this financial year. In order to make further budget savings in the next financial year, a £20,000 reduction in citizens' spend has been put forward. All options for future additions are being explored.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Might I ask a supplementary?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. That was an excellent rundown of the finances. My question was, have you checked the equalities impact to make sure that we are reaching the over 65s and low income households?
Well, as I'm over 65 myself, obviously I have some interest, but perhaps I'd like to ask the officers concerned to comment.
Thank you. Just to clarify, obviously, as part of the budget papers, they're so long, there's summary wording put in there. Whilst it just looks at online, just to really be very clear, we're looking at all options at the moment. So it might not just be online. We're looking at all different types of formats and options. Obviously, online is one of them. So obviously, that's just a summary wording in the budget paper. There'll be a further piece of work, more detailed piece of work, which will include all different formats, all different options, and timing of publications and how we communicate more broadly. So it will be looked at in the round, including an EQIA.
Thank you very much. A useful answer.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 11, Norwich Provisions Market Strategic Outline Case. Could I ask Councillor Kidman to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. Norwich Market, one of the oldest and largest open-air markets in the UK, deeply intertwined with the city's history and identity. For over 900 years, it's been a vibrant hub of commerce, serving as a central gathering place for locals and visitors alike. It is a key component for the identity of the city and a connection between its communities and the city centre. Its continuous operation through centuries of change, including wars, economic shifts and urban development, underscores its resilience and enduring importance to the cultural and social fabric of Norwich. Today, the market significantly enriches the city by supporting local businesses, boosting the economy and attracting tourists with its historical charm. And it serves as a community hub, promoting social interaction, sustainable shopping practices, and the preservation of cultural heritage. However, there is a strong case to address issues that are preventing the market from reaching its full potential. These range from physical issues like the spatial limitations of the market that affect operations, environmental issues that affect the experience of visitors, as well as operational issues that threaten its future operation and sustainability. To address these challenges, the market needs to invest in infrastructure improvements, enhance its digital presence, and develop a clear strategy to differentiate itself from competitors. And additionally, the Council needs to address financial and legal issues to ensure the market's long-term sustainability. Together, these offer an opportunity to reimagine the role and shape of the market within the city centre, offering a unique and exciting experience for the city's residents, workers, and visitors. The strategic outline case has been developed to assess and identify options for the provisions market and sets out a vision and objectives to guide the next phase of the project. A wide range of options have been considered, and the strategic outline case supports physical improvements to the market, with a number of options including minor to medium scale changes to enhance the market provision, and it also supports operational changes to better curate the market in the future. The strategic outline case has been informed by extensive public and stakeholder engagement, including numerous workshops with traders. This has helped to build a clear picture of what issues and opportunities exist at the provisions market and to establish a clear vision to guide a more detailed assessment of options at the next stage. We're now seeking approval to develop a more detailed business case around these options, which would include seeking further public and stakeholder input on a range of options identified and build an outline business case based on a preferred option. A significant part of this next business case stage would be gathering input on the options from traders, partners, the business community, voluntary and creative sectors, and the wider public. It would also provide us with all the many architectural, technical and financial reports required for this exciting project to move through to planning and implementation. The lead officers for the project are in attendance should members have any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kidman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on the exempt item? Nope. And does any cabinet member wish to speak on the above the line item? Councillor Jones.
Just from the briefings we've had on this, and just quite, the market is something that's so iconic for the city, and I think this is really exciting because investing in that is so crucial. It's at the heart of our city. So I'm really looking forward to this. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, completely agree. I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
Thank you very much, Chair. The market is acknowledged as a jewel in the crown of Norwich, where small traders and businesses long established and new work hard year round through winter cold and summer heat to enliven our city centre. A revamp which addresses long-standing problems for traders, as well as establishing the weekend trade, carbon and waste-friendly operations, and aesthetic refresh is long overdue and exciting. The report recommends spending £750,000 from reserves as a first step to providing a detailed report and some quick wins. Rightly, traders have been consulted, but users so far have not. How can we be assured of co-creation, customer input and value for taxpayers, and that the management team will be supported with resources going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Calvert. I can address that for you. The project has been informed by extensive evidence as well as trader and wider stakeholder engagement. A public survey was conducted in 2022 where 1,400 members of the public were surveyed in person, and this included users and non-users of the market. And this evidential data was fed into the project from the very beginning. The next stage of the project focuses on engagement with the public and key target groups to further refine and validate the findings with the aim of identifying a preferred option for the provisions market. And that preferred option will be supported by a business case, which will not only look at financial value for money for the city, but also wider economic, social and environmental benefits. This will enable a robust decision to be made and resources to be put in place to support delivery. The investment of council funds will reap huge dividends for traders and the city's economy and will firmly seal the market's viable future as a vibrant and thriving place for visitors and tourists to experience from all over the country and beyond.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kidman. Okay, brilliant. In which case we will move to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. Item 12, consideration of amendments to the Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle policy. Matt Packer isn't here. This would come under his name. So I will formally move a report unless any officers present want to say anything. But otherwise, do I have a seconder? Councillor Kendrick. Does any other cabinet member wish to speak on the item? Nope. I'll move to questions from political group leaders that have been sent in advance. Councillor Calvert, would you like to ask your question on behalf of the Green Group?
Thank you very much, Chair. I know that the potential proposals require taxis to have CCTV. This has proved controversial in places like Peterborough, which adopted the policy, but surrounding areas didn't. What work has been done to ensure that Norwich works closely with contiguous councils like South Norfolk and Broadland to ensure consistency in this regard?
Thank you. I will read out the response from Councillor Packer. The Department for Transport recently updated the statutory guidance for taxi and private hire vehicle standards. The department's view is that the use of CCTV can provide a safe environment for the benefit of taxi/private hire vehicle passengers and drivers by deterring and preventing the occurrence of crime, reducing the fear of crime, assisting the police in investigating incidents of crime, assisting insurance companies investigating motor vehicle accidents. When considering whether or not to introduce mandatory CCTV in vehicles, licensing authorities should consult to identify if there are local circumstances which indicate that the installation of CCTV in vehicles would have either a positive or an adverse net effect on the safety of taxi and private hire vehicle users, including children or vulnerable adults, and taking into account potential privacy issues. The Council is about to go out for consultation on a new driver standards policy which would cover this area. The consultation will run from 20th of January, should Cabinet approve it. The consultation will involve members of trade, neighbouring authorities and the police, as well as members of the public. Officers have a close working relationship with other authorities and are cognizant of their adopted driver and vehicle standards in relation to CCTV in taxi and private hire vehicles. Whilst not mandatory, South Norfolk and Broadland allow drivers to install CCTV in their vehicles following written approval. Currently, Norwich City Council does not have any requirement for CCTV in vehicles, but proposed changes to the conditions would allow discretion for drivers to install CCTV should they request it. This will mean that the Norwich City Council conditions will align with the South Norfolk and Broadland Council, ensuring consistency in this regard.
Thank you very much.